Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist. And what I also am is incredibly pissed off.
Okay, I don't fault you for that. I am not a therapist, but what I am is prophetic. And we all know this at this point. I made several predictions about Mark last week. You called me crazy. You said the producers were sandbagging us. And as it comes to pass in this episode, proven right once again. I am basically the Bachelor whisperer. People are starting to think, and there's rumors out there that I'm like friendly with production and I'm getting like stuff on the down low. And I know nobody in production for the record. This is all just my personal insight.
Are you creating the rumors?
Hey, listen, let's not start more rumors about the rumors, okay? Why don't you just tell people what we're doing here?
Fine, but then I want to come back to something that you just said. But clearly, we are very amped to get into our episode tonight, Joan's season of The Bachelorette, the inaugural Golden Bachelorette season. We're talking about episode 5. And before we get into all of our very, very lively opinions, please be sure to hit that like button at the bottom of this video and also hit that subscribe button too. Those 2 little taps go such a long way, and we so appreciate when you do.
And please also hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel. And before we get into this content, let me just open up by saying that we're starting to get data in, okay? Data's flowing in, and it's pretty clear that our sidebars, right? Our tangential takes on the alumni of the Bachelor Nation on Dancing with the Stars are actually quite polarizing. We're getting stuff. People are saying like, it's my favorite segment you've ever done. We have other people who are like, Chris, please shut the hell up. Stop talking about Dancing with the Stars.
I might be one of those people.
And so we got to please everybody. Okay. And so if you are here hoping to hear us talk about Dancing with the Stars, Joey and Jen, then we're going to save it to the end of the podcast so that the people that hate it can turn it off, and the people that love it, you can still get it. So don't you worry. We're here. We're going to talk that as well, because Joey and Jen, I think they're doing an okay job, but we'll talk about that at the end. But before we get, I actually wanted to start this episode off on a more somber tone.
This is like the longest prelude.
Okay, that's fine. I planned on starting this off on a somber tone originally because we had been talking about how the Golden Series was one of the highest rated, the Golden Bachelor with Gary, and how it had unbelievable ratings. It was a resurgence. And then for whatever reason, even though you and I think that the Golden Bachelorette is just better across pretty much any axis you want to compare it to, compared to the Golden Bachelor, it's actually got some of the lowest ratings. And I had an opportunity. I was talking to my mother a couple nights ago. And for those of you who weren't following back then, my mother doesn't watch any TV. And for whatever reason, she decided she was going to watch The Golden Bachelor. This is a woman who maybe has seen, 10 shows in her entire life. And so I was talking to her. I said, "Oh, are you watching The Golden Bachelorette?" And she said, "Absolutely not." And I said, "Well, but what happened?" And she said, "Oh, it just turned out to be all BS and all fake. And the over-the-top wedding that you and I were very critical of, and the breakup a month later," she basically turned around and said, "You know what? No, I was here to see something real. It felt like maybe it was going to be real, and it turned out to all just be just a more reality TV fake nonsense, and I am not watching it." And on top of that, she said that all of her friends that were also first-time watchers of The Bachelor season, not a one of them is watching The Golden Bachelorette. And, according to her, which she is not the median voter, people, let me just point that out. She is not the median voter. But she basically said that all of her friends that had tuned into The Golden Bachelor for basically the same reasons had all tuned out. So that's only one person's opinion, but that might explain why overwhelmingly, after what felt like a resurgence with the Golden Series, you and I said it, the wedding was too far. That was a waste of hours of TV. It was horrific, and the breakup a month later, it just looked bad across the board.
It didn't feel genuine.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It felt like they would just milk it. That's the problem with Hollywood these days. They find anything that works, and they just milk it to death as fast as possible. They have no awareness of how to like draw something out and really like milk it over the long term. They just go right at it. They butcher that cow, and they take every morsel out of it as quick as possible. So
yeah. No, I think it's a really good insight. I wonder if viewership of Golden Bachelorette is simply just people that are like us now, you included, just like into the franchise. I'm not sure. I'd be curious to know, for any of you that are watching this, or if you're here, not here, but here watching the Golden Bachelorette specifically for the Golden Bachelorette, or are you here because you just enjoy the franchise? I'd really be curious to know where you stand on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So let's get into the actual episode. Dare I say the most shocking rose ceremony in at least 3 seasons?
I screamed.
She did scream. Max jumped. You see, Max was sleeping until she yeah. Yeah, I didn't. I was very surprised at the rose ceremony. This was also had some real cringy moments in there. Had a couple of emotional moments. It was just coming after last episode. I was critical last episode. I said it was kind of I was gentle about it, but I did say it was definitely the most boring episode of the season. This episode opened up where it felt like, yeah, I'm already bored the first 15 minutes in. I felt like, okay, we're getting more of last episode. I'm starting to pick up my phone and not paying attention. And then we got
some drama.
We got some drama with the bowling date, and then we roll into the Mark thing, and then we roll into the cocktail, rose ceremony. And it was definitely probably the most surprising and interesting episode of the season thus far. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. It was in for those reasons, it wasn't my favorite, but it also was the most entertaining. I just didn't like the outcome, really.
You don't like surprises.
Well, yeah, I don't like surprises, but I think 2 of the men that I really loved also went home.
Yeah, the one good thing about this,
really disappointed with her final 4. So.
Yeah, I don't love her final 4. What I'll say is
I'm rooting for no one. That's what I said when the episode ended. It was I don't even care about the outcome at this point. I mean, that's my emotional reaction. Of course I care. And I'm really, really curious to see these relationships unfold, because clearly there's more going on than what we're seeing. Mm-hmm. But my immediate thought was oh, what a bummer.
Yeah, I'm not wild about this final 4. That being said, I'm on the record saying that I want Jonathan to be the next Bachelor. And this sort of paves the way. He's out in due time. They got plenty of time to sort of ramp him into it. He could have gone to the 4, but then I think there would have been less onion to peel back later. So I think this is a good moment for Jonathan to go, because it gives him the best ramp opportunity into being the Golden Bachelor. And I have to say, Mark was obviously the front runner just because of who he is
to the
franchise at this moment. But he was a tremendous letdown this season. And Jonathan was clear in a way the one who is most ready to carry a Bachelor season as a lead. And if these are your 2, quote unquote front runners, I don't think it's even a competition. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited, because I feel like tonight went a long way in making Jonathan our next Golden Bachelor. And I am excited for that season already. Right? Far more excited for that than I am for Grant's season. And I like Grant, and I think Grant's going to be a fun Bachelor. But I'm far more excited for Jonathan.
Well, I feel like we just know Jonathan a lot more than we know Grant. Mm-hmm. So I think that and
he's also more interesting.
Well, we don't know enough about Grant to know if he's interesting or not. But yeah, I mean, I think Jonathan's a fantastic choice for a Golden Bachelor. If they do it again, I don't know if their ratings are low enough that they'd say
That's fair. All right, this has been a long prelude into it. So let's go over to Good Date, Bad Date, shall we?
Yes.
All right, 3 dates this week, like always. We get the first date, which is we finally get our first helicopter date. And then they hang out at a winery, wine tasting situation. We've done this date before. The helicopter, I don't like for all the reasons I've talked about in past seasons. Basically, it's not particularly private. You have all this technology kind of blocking you. Yes, you're kind of got some alone time, but all between the headphones and the microphones, and the fact that the microphones aren't private, you got the pilot talking to you. It's not a great date for really getting to know somebody. That being said, they do have kind of the wine tasting opportunities where that does give them a little bit more one-on-one time. So it's okay, but I would not want this to be a first or second or third date with somebody. I would just feel like don't have enough opportunity And the allocation of time is wrong for really getting to know somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't actually mind the helicopter portion of this date in ways that I do in other seasons, maybe because it's not so overdone this season as it can be. Like in Jen's season, I forget how many helicopters she was
4,
on.
I think it was. At least 3.
But like this felt like much more of a mode of transportation rather than a focal point of the date.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, it was like, okay, they're up there. Yes, all those things are true. But like this is just a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked, their little vineyard, winery, wine tasting, whatever it was, date. I liked that.
That's because you like wine tastings.
Yeah, I do. And it did give them some time. So I thought all in all, it was a really like intimate date, a good setup, and talking to another married couple in a sense. I thought that was sweet to have like a married couple be like the hosts. Hosts. So I think for me, this is a pretty good date. I think this is like B+, A- date.
Like first, second, third date, you'd be okay with this?
Well, to the extent that like helicopter, if we're in the world in which helicopter is reasonable, yeah. But like first date helicopter in my life, that'd be a little too much. Coming out a little too strong.
Okay, fair. All right. Second date, we have the group date. Your Hell on Earth, bowling, my fantasy.
Bowling is the worst date.
Bowling is the worst date, but it is such a fun activity. This is the problem that we have, is that I love bowling. Love it. You hate it. So we do it once a year around my birthday.
I broke my middle finger twice. I don't know if you could see that. But the problem is that my middle finger
is crooked.
It's crooked, and not only is it not comfortable to sit in the holes in the ball, but it also really ruins the direction.
You get what made you such an unbelievable softball pitcher is that because your finger was broken and crooked, the ball would come off your hand with a bunch of weird spin. That worked in softball. Unfortunately, it's working against you in bowling.
Yeah, so it's not.
So you end up with a lot of gutter balls.
Yeah, it just takes me a long time to adjust, and by that time my nails are ripped off, ruined. It's just not very fun for me. And as a date, if you're just a twosome going out, like when do you ever talk?
Bowling is even if you're in a setting like this, bowling is the absolute worst possible date because it's so rotational. You're constantly getting up, and me and my ex-girlfriend from high school and early college, we basically do two things. We go to the movies and go bowling. That's like all we ever did. And I can tell you that there's zero conversation. That's actually one of the reasons why I liked her.
I was just gonna say.
I didn't have to talk to her.
Loved those 2 dates because those are both dates where you don't communicate.
Yeah, there's zero communication. You're rotating too quickly and too fast. Even like, we go bowling around my birthday. Usually a lot of times my parents will come down and the 4 of us will go bowling. And there's no talking. You're talking 10 seconds at a time. So bowling, terrible date.
What about the third date?
Third date. What was the third date?
Wow, that really speaks to the fireworks that
I mean, can we just say that? So this is the date that actually should have been the all-star date, right?
Well, they saved it for Mark, which again supports your theory.
So I mean, look, Mark got bailed out a lot this episode, all over the place. We'll get to that, but I mean, you're on a private yacht with a nice big charcuterie board that you're not allowed to eat. You got.
It was cold.
Cuddle up time. I mean, there was so much opportunity here to make this fireworks and special. Also, you got a cabin. You didn't have to sit outside the whole time. You could have gone into the cabin area. It's a big giant yacht. There's a bedroom in there. You could have made things a little interesting for yourself. There's just no, so as a date, let's not talk about the events of the date yet. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. As a date, amazing.
A+,
amazing, perfect, couldn't be better. You have to try to screw this up, which is what made it so infuriating as a date. Hang tight. We'll get to it in a few minutes.
This is like my perfect date.
Yeah. Situation. I mean, you didn't even need the scavenger hunt stuff. Well, I mean, the scavenger hunt.
They needed the scavenger hunt.
Production was like, I think production had realized that Mark had nothing going on.
Yeah.
And this was going to be terrible. And they needed something
like
to juice it.
Break in case of emergency.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like this was not a situation where they were like, oh, this is the plan. They're like, let's see how this goes. And this is our escape hatch, so that this isn't just a complete cringe moment. It was definitely a break in case of a glass, break glass in case of emergency type of moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So generally speaking, we're all over the place on these dates. Some A's, some almost F's, but hey,
But overall, we're getting better with the dates.
overall, at least they're a little more interesting than what we got. I mean, Jen season, the dates just felt all so similar that was getting really boring by the end. And these are really the final dates that we're going to see of this structure. Now we're going to go on to hometown dates, and we're going to go on to like the last chance dates and those types of things in the fantasy suites. And so really we're done with the traditional franchise dates at this point.
Yeah.
All right. So shall we go to the events of the actual episode?
Yeah.
All right. You want to start with dates? You want to start with the Trista cameo? Where do you want to start?
I guess we could start at the top with Trista.
All right. So Trista is
first ever Bachelorette.
Okay, and that means that she's the same age at this point as Joan?
She's probably a little younger. I think Trista's in her 50s.
Okay.
But Trista is also the most successful Bachelorette. She is with her final pick. They've been married all this time, have children. They live, a relatively like quiet life. All of this was before social media, so they weren't like shilling FabFitFun boxes on Instagram. They I think her husband is or was a firefighter. I forget what she did. So they kind of live a normal life and been married happily all this time.
Nice. Okay. I hate these cameos. We all know this. They drop them in there. Most of the time you get nothing really of substance. It always feels like a little too like pre-canned, performative. Yeah. It's like when a politician sits down with a friendly journalist and they've been fed the questions ahead of time. That's what it always feels like to me. And that's what this felt like. I don't know.
The only thing, I started to think about it a little bit more in retrospect when Joan was talking to Mark later, when she was saying like, you all have each other. Like, I'm alone. Mm-hmm. And like, while I think we get what we get on camera and it is sort of scripted and pre-canned, I do imagine it's really meaningful for the leads to meet with a former lead that like actually can empathize with them in a really real way about like how hard this is or how lonely it is, or like not really knowing if you're gonna make the right choice. So I do think that there's probably more value off screen that we're not seeing than we get on screen. Trista gives Joan some advice based on a regret that she had from her season, which is that she, wishes that she was more vulnerable, particularly with Ryan, who is her now
shared
husband.
More. Yep.
Yeah, shared more, and also expressed to him that she loved him when she felt it, and she hates that he was ever like there was ever a time that he was kind of left wondering. Mm-hmm. And so I imagine this will be some foreshadowing for what we'll see going forward. But so we heard that advice, and then we hear Joan, talking again about the guilt that she feels about moving forward with someone else, doesn't want her husband's memory to fade away. And this is something that I don't know how much I've talked about on this season, but certainly in Gary's I did a lot, like this oscillation between almost grief and growth, and that it can make grieving and grief just so complex, because the happier you become, the more distant you feel from the person that you lost. And so oftentimes when there is happiness, there is like this quickly associated guilt, and then you get kind of tied back into the grief, and it's really, really hard to navigate grief that way, but it's so common.
You know what this reminded me of? In the show version of Wheel of Time, when the warder that's not in the books goes to Nynaeve and asks her for the tea, right?
Sleepy tea.
The sleepy tea. And he says, like, I'm already forgetting my Aes Sedai, which is somebody he's bonded to magically. And he basically says, like, I don't want to forget her. Like, that's the last thing. I want to continue to feel pain because that's how I know she's still with me. Yeah. And that's sort of the same kind of general sentiment and feeling. Like, yes, it's painful, but there is a little bit of comfort in the pain because I know that I still care. Yeah. And when I stop feeling pain, does that mean that I'm no longer caring,
or I've forgotten?
Yeah, or forgotten. Yeah,
that's huge. I mean, when I think about clients that I work with that are navigating loss, like that is the struggle. Is just that. Like, does being happy mean that I like have forgotten, or that I no longer love this person? And yeah, it's really tough.
Yeah. So just for the record, I expect that you're going to live 30 years longer than me. So I want you to both be happy and be in pain for those 30 years.
I'm
Not like agonizing pain, but like I want there to be a nice dull thud up in there for those 30 years, you know?
I don't want to think about it.
Yeah, well, hey, you got to prepare because you're definitely outliving me. Your uncle just turned like 98.
He did.
I'm lucky if an uncle turns 78. So before we move into the dates, actually, one other thing, we do get not the cold open, but the opening scene. Pascal, the growth. We're getting a little steaming up in there.
Mm-hmm.
Good for him, you know.
Just growing up right before our eyes.
Just before our eyes, he's becoming a full-fledged functioning adult right before our eyes. Yep. So, but yeah, so all right. So let's get into date one, and date card goes to Keith.
Mm-hmm.
Keith got the first impression rose.
I want a love that gets better with age, says the date card.
Yep.
And prior to this date, Keith is still sort of like in his embarrassment hangover.
He bombed last week, but he owned it. He was aware. He knew. Yep.
And he says like he feels like he's stalling out. And I think that was really accurate, very self-aware. So we love that.
Yep. A couple things that were noteworthy that Joan said before this date, and that is Keith reminds her of John in that he's a big personality, but she also knows that he can be a little bit of a goofball, but doesn't know how much depth there is to him. And that's really her big holdup with Keith at this moment. So she's got to figure that out. Did he show depth is really the question here. Do we think that Joan got what she was asking for?
I mean, apparently no, because he went home. But I think that they just don't have a strong enough rapport. And so and then this mirrors what happens with Mark in a way. Like while yes, Joan got to know Keith more and got to learn a little bit more about his relationship history and raising his kids and things like that. Like that's all she wrote as it related to that. So I don't know. And there is part of me that wonders, like, and maybe it's a bit of a double standard, but I feel like so much of the narrative that he put forth, and again, same as Mark, is about their past, and there's not a lot of vision for future. And I think that also is perhaps what Joan is kind of evaluating when she's having these conversations in terms of depth. Like, yes, I know what shaped you, but like, where are you going? Where are we going? Like, what do you see? What do you want? Like, and she's trying to envision what her life will look like with these people, and they're not giving that to her. And so from that perspective, I don't think she got that.
Interesting. So I see what you're saying. I actually have a slightly different take on this whole thing. This was the culling week of those that were insecure. If you actually look at the 3 of the 4 that remain, they're basically 3 people that are all very confident, right? And the 4th one, he's not like an alpha aggressive confident, but he's confident enough, right?
Is that Jordan?
That would be that'd be Guy, right?
You think Guy's not an alpha?
Well, I think we can touch on that in a little bit, but yeah. So at the end of the day, what I see is I see the people that went home were the people that continually showed at this stage of the game that they're not particularly secure. They're also people that aren't particularly exciting, personalities at this point. They're kind of a little bit boring at times, except for Jonathan. But Jonathan also demonstrated significant insecurity. I think that this was a week where the 7 people started this week, 4 people made it through. The 3 people that didn't go through were the 3 least confident people that, and I think that is a noteworthy characteristic.
I think that is a really good take. I think that's pretty accurate in terms of their insecurities, being kind of
she's too old to have to deal with insecurity and lack of a forward plan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Time is running out. That's what my mother said this week. I can't watch this show because I watched 1 season. It turned out to be trash at the end, and I don't have enough time to waste another season watching this show. That's what my mother said, and that I would imagine is probably a sentiment that is shared by a lot of older people at Joan's age when they're talking about like, where is my life going? When she's on the date with Mark, she's like, where are we going to be in 5 years? And he gave up a nothing answer, right? Keith gave an even worse answer when he had the opportunity, right?
Yeah. I mean, these 2 men in particular just seem so, and I guess Jonathan too, like just so still deeply impacted by their past.
Mhm.
Whereas the other men really, I mean, yes, it's a part of it, but I think they feel more like in the now
Yeah.
and not so much like still grappling with what's happened.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, my take on this entire date was that I was bored, and Joan looked bored, and Keith was not giving any excitement. I wasn't giving any real new depth.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like he missed everywhere. It felt like what Joan specifically was looking for, he didn't deliver on. And if you're not gonna, you have to excite in some way, shape, or form. You either have to have a really good connection because you're a great, conversationalist. You have to, engage on an emotional level, or you have to make body parts tingle. And he was doing none of the above, and so he had to go.
Yeah.
And I really thought it was a high probable chance he was going to go last week. So no surprise here.
No surprise. One thing that we didn't mention prior to getting into the dates is I don't think that this has ever happened before, but Joan specifically said she's not giving out date roses. And I loved this choice.
Because otherwise it would have gone down to a rose ceremony, 1 rose for 4 men.
I mean, and maybe that's why she did
This is always the week where it just feels anticlimactic in a lot of ways.
But her rationale for not doing it is that she just really wanted to give herself and them enough time together to like really explore the connections to the best of their abilities. And I thought I liked this. I hope that a future Bachelorette does this again. I thought it was a good choice.
I agree it was a good choice. I disagree with your reasoning. I have frequently said that it's very difficult, specifically for the Bachelorettes, to not give roses on one-on-one dates. Mm-hmm. They're talking about deep-seated trauma and things that have happened in their past and all this emotional stuff, and then say, yeah, not connecting, sorry, not giving you a rose. That is like unfair and hard to put on a lead, right? And as a result, this is always the week where it's so anticlimactic because whoever gets the one-on-one date, they're safe. Because you're just not getting a rose.
Not always, but we haven't seen it recently.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still relatively new in the grand scheme of this franchise, but I've never seen anybody not get a rose on a one-on-one date. I've heard of it happening once. And that's it. One time I've heard of it happening. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think that's pretty telling. So I think it's a great idea when you get down to this few people.
Yeah.
Right. When the number of dates outnumber the number of roses that would remain for a rose ceremony, stop giving roses at the dates. All right. Should we move on to date number 2, the group date?
Let's do it.
All right. We already, kind of buried the lead on this terrible date. I think the key takeaway here is really finally getting a little drama among the guys.
Yeah.
And even this, like, not so drama-y. They go bowling, Chalk. We have been a little up and down on Chalk. Yeah. We liked him at the beginning. We didn't like some other stuff he did. We liked him again. We didn't like him again. I'm back on this guy is intense.
Yeah.
He's aggressive. Some of the ways he looks and talks.
I'm wondering. They had his face was like beet red and his veins were. I'm like, oh my! I wrote Chalk is intense.
Yeah, like I'm wondering if this guy is actually a psychopath and he's just like hiding it well. He just seems like a guy who if he gets eliminated, he legit might just like flip out.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he's someone who like I don't know how much of the thing for him is the chase, is the competition, mm-hmm. and how much is actually Joan.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I can't tell. He seems like such like that like alpha competitive energy that I really can't tell if it's like winning Joan.
Yeah, I thought the leaving and coming back, just the speed at which that happened last week was a little strange. The intensity this week, the whole thing is, my red flags are up on Chalk. The problem here is that Joan clearly likes Chalk, and I don't really understand what it's about. Chalk manages to get on her bowling team, manages to spend pretty much the entire time sitting next to her.
Around her.
This is the thing about bowling is that, again, you're rotating so quickly that you're in and out of the seat. It's even if somebody goes and sits down next to her, it's his turn to bowl in 30 seconds anyway. So he's up and down and up and down. It's hard to have a conversation. And if you're not even on her team, you're on the other side, then it's even harder for you to really be in position to take advantage of that. And Chalk was very strategic here. You could tell the guys were getting a little bit annoyed, but these were all mature men, and they're just not gonna we're not gonna get any Aaron or Sam type of drama here, from Gen season. That's just not gonna happen here. In the trailer from last week, they suggested that maybe they would even confront Chalk. They did a little funny editing. There was no confrontation. They talked about it a little amongst themselves, being like,
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, Guy said like, give the other guys a chance, and Chalk like kind of blew him off, but that was the extent of it. But he's not here to make friends.
Not here to make friends. No, definitely not.
He's here for his number one. He's keeping the main thing.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, outside of that, I did not think that there was anything really interesting here. You can't get too deep with anybody. All the guys did some good bowling.
We get a couple of one-on-one brief moments. Not only does Chalk get some time like in front of the guys, but some other guys we see time with Joan. Jonathan is talking about feeling like he has a second chance at being a family, like with Joan, and the prospect of Joan, showing pictures of his mom and him as a kid and pictures of his kids. So there's some sharing going on there. So Guy says something to her that he said last week as well that I found not only cringy, but kind of a red flag. He says something like, this is the happiest that he's ever been. And the only constant, as he considers what has contributed to this happy feeling, is Joan. And that just feels a little much, considering the fact that they had a one-on-one date last week. And prior to that, they both acknowledged that they hadn't really spent any time together. And so it feels like the emotions are a little intense, and it might be infatuation, perhaps.
And too early.
It's way too early.
Also, as viewers, we know of several other constants as well, more likely to be the cause of this. Like hanging out in a house with a bunch of guys that are in similar situations and having good quality conversations and having, forming new friendships. Like there's actually
I don't know, taking a break from being an ER doctor. That could be something.
I feel like there's a lot of constants during this journey that are beyond just Joan that could easily be
there's too many variables to consider.
Yes. That is how math works. Yes. I also their kiss at the end, really awkward.
It was like
it was really weird because it was like
kiss.
she was going in for the kiss and he didn't get it and pulled back, and then he tried to do it, and he did the gross thing with the double hand on the face kiss, like grandma kisses like grandson type of. It was just the whole thing was just awkward and weird. I just don't think they have any chemistry.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, compare Guy, what we've seen of Guy and Joan versus what we've seen of Jonathan and Joan. How does Guy get through? Rigged.
Maybe.
Yep.
Maybe. And then Chalk gets time alone
because
he didn't
get enough time.
Didn't get enough. Yep. It's just going for more. And then they have another exchange similar to last week where they both endorse that they can see a future together.
And I mean, he really ramped. We thought he was intense before. He really ramped up the intensity on this conversation.
Yeah.
Cut her off a few times. I know how much you love when people do that. Yep.
He's just only listening in order to speak again. He's like not actually hearing her. I don't think he gives a shit about what, it's just like and that's why I say that tongue in cheek, but I actually do mean that to some degree, where I feel like he is so wanting to win I don't know, win the competition, that like everything feels like a bit of a performance where is he really spending time getting to know Joan, or is he spending time just putting himself in front of Joan to get picked? That's where I'm missing it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's exhibiting a lot of alpha qualities where it's more about winning the competition and less about winning the actual prize. All right, so shall we move on to date number 3, Mark's one-on-one date on the yacht?
Yes. So before we get into the date, we actually get a moment with Mark by himself first, where he's just doing a voiceover or maybe in an ITM, and he's talking about losing his wife, Denise, 6.5 years ago, and really struggling while being here on this journey, and feeling like he's kind of losing hope in terms of a connection with Joan, and not really sure if he's doing the right thing, and kind of looking for a sign that he's doing the right thing. We then kind of move into a scene where he is with the guys and sharing with them about Denise, and he had a hummingbird feeder in their home, and Denise used to hold her hand out, and birds would just land in her palm and just be fed like straight from her palm, and that became a sign to look for, to indicate that Denise was with them. And while he was kind of walking around the mansion, he saw a hummingbird and felt like really affirmed that he is doing the right thing. And he had said, I lost a ton off my shoulders, and now it's kind of opening the door to let someone in, and I feel really good. And so he's getting this kind of permission, I guess, that he's feeling like he needs right before he goes in to the date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, hey, look it. I think that it's noteworthy in that he's having all of these doubts, right? I think at the end of the day, if you're having these doubts, you should be stopping. You should be thinking about, what are these doubts really saying to me, right? And how pervasive are these doubts that I'm having, and what's sort of the genesis of these doubts. And if the doubts go away by simply seeing what you perceive to be as a sign, I think that's really good information too, right? And I think it's pretty clear the way this date goes, that Joan is sort of feeling the same thing I'm feeling here. And it's what I talked about last week. Mark's not ready. He's a super nice guy. It's clear he's a super nice guy, but it's also clear that he's not a super exciting guy, despite us thinking that maybe he would be. And he's still very, very deeply in love with his wife, who is now passed. And he's having a difficult time conceiving of what life is after her, even though she's been gone for, I believe it's 6 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of what this entire date kind of comes back to. He's stuck in his thoughts. He's being way too cautious. He's thinking about his ex-wife. Every conversation is about his ex-wife. And I understand that. And
it's very similar to Charles L.
Very similar to Charles L. And what do we say about that? Same thing. He's not ready. Like, the best thing that can come out of this experience for Charles L. was for him to make peace with the fact that there's nothing he could have done. It was, a freak situation that, just happened. And as much as tragic as it is, these things sometimes just happen. There's nothing you could do. It's no one's fault. And at some point you just have to sort of move on. And Mark's in the same boat. The only difference between Mark and Charles L. is Charles L. was looking for that closure, whereas it doesn't feel like Mark is at the point where he's really ready to close that door. Whereas Charles L., it felt like he was actually wanting to close the door. He was looking for the answers. He was seeking them out. And when he got them, you could see the relief lift off him. Mark, he's not looking for the answers right now. He's still kind of much in it.
The experience of loss between Charles and Mark was very different, where Charles's wife died suddenly of an aneurysm, and Mark's wife, while she was diagnosed with cancer at stage 4, like, there was still some time to prepare mentally, emotionally, and otherwise. There was a clear answer of why she died.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think he was necessarily needing closure in quite the same way. I do wonder, I know Mark's got a bunch of kids. Kelsey, I don't know where she is in the birth order, but she's certainly not.
I feel like one of 6 or something like that.
There's a lot of kids. Yeah. And so I don't know how old like his youngest is, mm-hmm. but I can also imagine, and Kelsey referenced this on Joey's season, and just knowing that like her dad could never really fully grieve because he had to show up and be a dad. And I don't know how much time he's actually had to not like take the dad hat off, mm-hmm. And having to just be the main parent of all these kids. And so I think that, again, very, very different life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. But going back to the date itself, basically this was sort of Joan's big fear, right? She came into this date and she was basically saying that Mark seems like a really nice guy, but he's quiet and he's very reserved, which is exactly what I had said last week. He just seems like like he's being too cautious. And what she really just wanted to see out of this date was, is there life in him, right?
Do we have a connection?
Is there any sort of spark here where instead of just sitting down and having a nice time, am I gonna like wake up and be jolted and be excited? And he's a slow burn is the phrase that's oftentimes used. He is a slow burn. It was kind of cringy to watch. It was awkward. It was really just like you were just feeling bad because you're just watching him on this beautiful yacht, and he can't even seem to muster up even basic conversation, right? Until finally he's saved when producers send the captain down to send him on a scavenger hunt, right? And even on the scavenger hunt, he got a little bit more going, but it still just never felt smooth. This is a guy, when we first saw him on Joey's season during Hometowns, he just seemed like a guy who could be the life of the party, but was a good guy and was, just.
Well, we see that with the guys. Like we see that, like he's got that big personality, that big teddy bear personality. I forget which man, but while he was coming down, referred to him as like salt of the earth. And that is a perfect description for him. Just kind of a humble guy, good, honest, earnest guy. Like he is that. And I think he can be, remember when they were playing kickball, like giving everybody hugs, like again, kind of life of the party in that sense. But yeah, from a dating perspective, like just not there.
Yep. And Joan was clearly feeling it as well. They talked a little bit about the future. They talked, they did some games and some scavenger hunts, but from start to finish, it was a hard watch.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and this is where like you kind of know that Joan wasn't feeling it, because while they were just sitting so quietly before the captain came down, there was a part of me that was like, Joan, remove yourself, turn face toward him, and just start talking. And maybe she felt like at this stage, I shouldn't be the one to have to initiate. But like, again, if she wanted to, she would, kind of thing. Like if she really felt like there could be something, she might have leaned in a little bit more. Perhaps, but I could also see her saying like, no, it's got to be him to make the effort like this far down the road.
Yeah, I was having a similar thought. There's a couple aspects of this I think are interesting. One is, as a guy, right? If I say something to a woman, ask her a question, something, and she gives me like one word answers back or very short answers, then I stop putting in effort, because either she's not interested or she's playing hard to get and I'm not interested in the game, right? I just want her to turn it. If she's interested, I expect her to give me a good response if I ask her a good question, right? Or I leave it at least an open-ended question, right? To at least indicate to me that she's interested. At the same time though, like I do expect that I should have to initiate. And they are 20, 30 years older than us, certainly more traditional as a nature of their age. So I would expect that she would be even more inclined to expect that the man is going to make the move, especially at this point. This is a supply and demand situation. She has 7 men all vying for her time. Why should she have to put in effort?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, that was her feedback to Pascal last week on the group date, is like, I want to see you make an effort.
Yeah. This isn't like, Love is Blind, where you've got 15 people and 15 people, and, you have to all, there's equal supply and equal demand. And thus you have to find equilibriums by giving and taking, by giving as much as you're taking, at least on the outset, right? Or early on, right? That's not the case in the Bachelor series. It's 25-1, which means 25 people are giving everything and one person is basically taking. And they're a good lead if they happen to give a little back at the best leads, at least give a little back. So I would just imagine that at this stage, like Joan probably was just like, I've got 6 other guys that are all
stronger connections,
fun to be with, good guys that can hold a conversation that I don't have to really put in a lot of work. And so why force it? Enjoy your charcuterie board, have a couple slices of cheese, enjoy the view, and just, wait for the date to end. And unless it's like really awkward, where it's just like uncomfortably awkward, then, at that point, like, okay, maybe put in a little effort just to get through it. But production came and saved her.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, they ended up having a nice conversation. I could see them being good friends.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want to be friends with Mark?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have a
Seems
lot.
like the best friend.
They have a lot in common. And that seemed to bring Joan like a great deal of just peace and feeling like someone could relate to her. But long story short, the date ends. And this is where like it was just so hard to watch because while Mark is feeling really good and feeling like it went really well, we hear Joan say
his compass is way off.
There still seems to be something missing. Yeah. And, Joan has 15 other, however many dates she's been on at this point, so many other dates to compare it to, where I don't know how many dates Mark has to compare this to. And if this is his first date in a while, then yeah, it's going to feel like the best date. But Joan just had a date a couple days ago that was better than this. And so he doesn't have a lot to compare it to where she does in a recency perspective too.
I think that is the perfect and most cogent analysis of this situation.
Fast forwarding a bit, he's kind of debriefing with the guys, kind of in his mind, starting to think about what hometowns are going to be like. And the guys are kind of feeling, I mean, they know Mark, they kind of have a sense of like how great Mark is. So I think they're sort of saying like, well, we know he's great. Like, of course she's going to think he's great. And so they all feel like Mark's got this in the bag for the hometown rose. But meanwhile, Joan shows up and sits down with him and essentially says, something doesn't feel right. You've grown so much here. You're healing. But I didn't see me in what you were saying. And I didn't see us in your future. And you're not as far along in your journey as I am. I came in too early in the journey.
I think she nailed it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she absolutely nailed it, right?
Yeah. It's making me think Brene Brown, when in a lot of her books, she talks a lot about, communicating with others. I mean, she's a shame researcher. So she does a lot of work in that area. But in terms of leadership and values, a lot of what she talks about, one of her, for me, most salient things she said is that being clear is the kindest thing that you can do. And I think that this was such a good execution of that. Like she was very clear. She was very direct. She didn't beat around the bush. And it wasn't that she said anything
was fair
mean.
Analysis.
It was accurate. And I think that it was what he needed to hear and probably good feedback for him as he goes into whatever's next. And so I thought it was very kind what she did. And we all know Jonathan goes home, right? If we're watching this. But it made me wonder how much of Mark being a producer pick facilitated Joan to have that feel like she owed him that one-on-one conversation. And that's what made me feel so angry that Jonathan didn't get it. Like, why does Mark get owed that respect of a one-on-one chat when they barely had a conversation? And Jonathan, who they've spent a lot of time and meaningful time together, it appears, doesn't. And that's kind of like where I was feeling a little bit like frustrated. I was feeling like angry at the show and at like privilege or whatever. Like I was just feeling frustrated by that. Like I feel like it warmed my heart that Mark got that, but it made me equally angry that Jonathan didn't.
So did you feel better about how she walks him out at the end?
I mean, that's the least she could have done.
Okay. So it did a little bit to sate your anger, but not enough.
But she didn't give him she didn't give him an explanation, and maybe that's not fair. Maybe none of them are owed that. But I just felt like, for me, I felt blindsided by that. I really thought her top two were going to be Jonathan and Chalk.
I thought the top two were going to be Jonathan and Chalk as well. Yeah.
But
yeah, I yeah. Well,
when we get to the rose ceremony, we're already talking about it.
We are talking about it. Yep.
We learned that there are 4 roses. There's now 6 men because Mark has gone home. And the roses go Pascal, rose number 1.
Not surprising.
Chalk, rose number 2.
Not surprising.
When the guy rose got dropped, I was like, all right, so it's
unexpected.
So like Keith's going home for sure.
Yeah, I figured, okay, so I thought that Guy and Jordan were the likely ones to go home. And I thought if Guy makes it in, that means Keith is going home. That's where I was at.
Same.
Yeah.
Me too.
We were not right.
We were incorrect. The final rose went to Jordan.
The guy who gave her the
Did we see
ick?
him ice skate? Joan, what is going on? Do you see him with his faux hawk? What? Why?
He seems like a nice
There's
guy.
no connection that we see.
Again, I maintain that she sent Jonathan home early. He was
because he would take it harder.
No, I think ultimately she was doing her and him. I think she already knows it's Chalk. And at this point now, she's clearing the decks of all the people that are real competition where it's going to get harder.
She's got 3 funs and 1 serious.
3 funs and 1 serious. She's got Pascal, who's the serious. No, Chalk, who's the serious.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, Pascal? I guess Pascal.
I mean, as a personality.
Oh, yeah, he's
Jordan's
fun, yeah.
like a goofball.
Yep.
Pascal, clearly goofball.
I feel like Guy is very beige.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think he's fun or serious. He's just like he's always gonna be a 6.
Yeah.
Just chilling.
Yeah, this is a weird
I can't explain it.
Unless she just picked the 4 most attractive men. Could that be?
I think Jonathan is.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, you're right.
I mean, that's a problem. You know?
I know. I don't know.
I mean, when Jonathan was wearing that skin tight shirt, I'm like, God, I would kill for his pectoral muscles. Kill. The guy's ripped.
I mean, all of it. His complexion, his eyes, his body, his personality.
I don't know about all that. I just want his muscles. Yeah. I want his height and I want his muscles. That's what I want. I'll take those. I do want Danny Amendola's abs, though. We'll get to that at Dancing with the Stars.
But I'm curious your reactions to who we have as our final 4. What do you think Joan was thinking when she picked these men? What are you seeing that we're not seeing? But because in this house, we were shocked. We were shook. Yeah.
Yep. So my last comment before we move on to Rose and Thorn is when Mark came into the room and announced that he was leaving to the guys. Again, the way that they rallied, the way that they supported him, the way that they all just hugged him and just that camaraderie there. It was just a beautiful thing. And it was, you don't see that a lot in male circles. And so when you see it with this older generation, it's warming the heart is what I would say.
Well, I was just going to say what warmed my heart was when Pascal said, he's my best friend.
Yeah. I feel like doing something for Pascal or teaching Pascal something is like a death sentence, right? Greg, I'll do your laundry for $100. Gone, right? Who was it? Somebody taught him how to do laundry. He left the next week. And then last week we saw Mark teaching him how to do like laundry or something like that. He's now gone. So I feel like if you want to stay on this show, stay away from Pascal. That's the moral story.
He's becoming
Don't teach
more
him
and more
a thing.
Independent. So
maybe
everyone else.
Because he's got everyone teaching him stuff, So
very resourceful guy.
Very resourceful. Yeah. I'm happy you asked about my Rose this week.
Love it. My Thorn this week.
I hated to see that. Rose and Thorn?
Sure.
All right. We want to start with a Thorn today?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what about you? Ladies first?
My Thorn, gosh, I feel like I have a lot. Things that made me unhappy in this episode. Like the cringiness on the date with Mark. It was just like I had secondhand embarrassment watching that. That was just a tough watch. And what I guess gets my Rose and my Thorn at the same time was the Jonathan elimination because I could not believe it as my Thorn. It just made me really sad to see him go, but it also gave drama that like this episode was really needing. And so like I liked it for entertainment value, but I felt pretty bummed.
My Thorn this week, there's a couple things I could kind of choose from, right? Obviously, I don't like Jonathan going home. I don't like that Jack isn't here. I think he would have just made everything better. Can you imagine him playing bowling? It would have been awesome. But no, I really don't like this top 4. Like, it's not that I don't like the top 4. It's just not exciting. I feel like they have taken the suspense of the season away.
Yes.
And that's what I'm like.
They made us care about all of these guys only to send them home.
Rip them away.
And now we have these, I mean, I again, really like Pascal.
Yeah.
Chalk fine.
But
We knew he was going to be there. But like, I'm still invested. Okay, let's go. Let's go watch you drive around whatever expensive car you have. Show me your money. Like, fine. That'll be fun. It'll be fun to see. That'll be our character date, hometown date. Great. Chalk, we knew we were getting Chalk. Jordan and Guy, I know nothing about you, really. I don't have the same level of interest that I would in a hometown date
or investment.
Yeah, than I would it with Jonathan and Mark. And like, part of me wishes they just, kept Mark in just for the continuity of it all, so we get to see Joey and Kelsey together. Like,
yep. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the suspense is gone for the season. I feel like Chalk is winning this now. And
I mean, we said that last Golden Bachelor season, we thought Faith was winning and Teresa won. So I don't know. Could it be Pascal? Could it be Guy? Could it be Jordan? Is Chalk just a red herring?
Rose.
Yeah, I said my rose was like the unexpected drama.
Okay.
That I didn't like the drama, like what the content of the drama, but I liked like, oh, like we're getting something a little different this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My rose got to be the bowling, right?
Oh, I thought you were going to say Joan's dress.
No, the bowling. I'll take bowling. Here's the thing. I don't like bowling as a date. I think as a date it was terrible, but I just love bowling. And what month is it? It's October right now, which means the next time I will get to go bowling is in another 6 months, 5.5 months. So, hey, look I get to go bowling one time a year. We're like at the halfway mark. So this was like, it's like,
tie you over.
Yeah, tied me over a little bit. Just admiring other people bowling. And they actually were pretty good at it.
They were.
All right. I think it's time.
All right. The mirror ball is dropping.
The mirror ball?
Yeah.
The mirepoix?
Mirror ball.
You want me to make rice?
They get a mirror ball trophy.
Who's what?
The
who
winners of Dancing with the Stars.
Oh. Well, so in case you are new around here, we don't watch Dancing with the Stars, or I don't watch Dancing with Stars. I've never seen the show. Don't know how it's scored. Don't know if you can get eliminated. But we are amateur ballroom dancers. We have been since around 2012, 2011. And as it so happens that we have this crossover happening where some of the Bachelor alumni, specifically Joey, our last Bachelor, and Jen, our last Bachelorette, are on Dancing with the Stars this season. And thus, as amateur ballroom dancers and as people who have a podcast related to the Bachelor Nation,
champion.
We actually
amateur
have to.
Ballroom
we
dancers.
Are champion. Yes, we've won some championships. Yes, yeah, absolutely, we have. That's a thing that has happened a long time ago when I was 20 pounds lighter and I didn't have a locked up spine, basically. So yeah, so we got to talk about it. We got to do some commentary, give our thoughts and opinions. The important thing to know here is that I don't know what you watch. We don't watch it together. I don't watch the judging. I have no idea what they get scored. I don't hear the judges' commentary. I literally just search out the dances. I watched a 1-minute clip on YouTube, and that's all I see. And I make my assessment based on what I see there. And you do whatever your process yours is. So
where do you want to start?
And one other thing to note is, obviously, you can't just do 2 contestants. We had to pick a third, and the third that we picked was Danny Amendola. Why Danny Amendola? Because I was born in Massachusetts, and thus I'm a New England Patriots fan, and that's just how we made this decision.
And I'm not sad about it because I appreciate looking at Danny Amendola's abs.
I mean, jealous.
Yeah.
Which at least is something to be jealous of him about, other than his bank account and his abs, because you're not going to be jealous of his dancing skills. That is certain.
Let's start with him then.
Atrocious, right?
What?
Okay, let's start with Danny. Yes.
So it was
first off,
dedication night on Dancing with the Stars.
Oh, is that the theme? Okay.
Yeah. He's not actually bullshitting you. He literally knows nothing.
I literally don't even know that there's theme nights. I know that there are dancers, and I simply YouTube the clips, watch the 1-minute videos. Usually I'll watch them twice. I watch it once, and then I'll watch it a second time with a more critical eye, and then I turn it off, write up my notes, and move on with life.
So his dedication was to his late football coach.
Okay. That's a nice dedication.
And he performed a contemporary dance to Unsteady.
Okay. So the theme of the night was not dedication. The theme of the night was songs that Chris at one point in time kind of liked, and is now so sick of he never wants to hear again. These were all songs that have been played to death. I mean, literally played to death, to the point where if I have to hear them one more time, I want to stab like my eardrums with chopsticks. Okay. All three of these songs were the same for me. And at one point in time, I kind of liked each of the songs a little bit, at least a little, over them all. Anyway, so Danny's routine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First off, contemporary is not a dance. Okay.
It's not a ballroom dance.
It's not a dance. It's basically just lack of a dance. It's basically really just theater performance in a lot of ways. And I actually think that this was really smart, because I've been very critical of Danny in saying that he's not good with timing. He's really struggling with the steps. And so what do? Well, great. We'll just not have you dance on a dancing competition. We'll literally just put together a theater performance where you don't have to worry about timing anymore, really. And that there's no expectation.
It's about performance more than anything.
It's purely performance. Yeah. There's nothing really technical at this point to judge, because it's not a dance. And was it pretty? Yes. Were there some nice steps in there? Not really steps. Were there some nice, kind of lifts and tricks? Absolutely. But there was no dance. And that's what I'm most critical about, is like, it's a dancing competition. Frickin' dance. Don't give me contemporary nonsense to a song that I'm really burnt out on. You disagree?
I thought this was great. I thought he did a great job. I could tell that this was the most in the performance he's been, the least in his head he's been, the most comfortable he has seemed.
That's exactly what I wrote. I wrote, he looks the most comfortable this week of all of the weeks so far.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have to memorize steps.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, we know it's a lot,
yeah.
And we've talked about it last week specifically. Like, this is a lot to learn a routine in a week. Mm-hmm. And last week they had to learn 2. Like, this is a big feat. And they spent hours doing this. Like, it's, and not, I mean, he's a professional athlete, so it's not like he's not used to putting in a lot of physical work, but like the memorization of the routine. It's not only, this is where I get caught up. Like, I got the feet down. I can do that all day. Then you add in the arm styling. Then you add in the shaping. Then you add in just the actual performance. Like, it is so much. It's like doing this. I can't even do it. It's so hard. So I just want to say that for all of them. But for him specifically, like, he's, out of the 3 of them, struggled the most. He did a fantastic job. Whitney is unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable. That move where she was laying on the floor, and I don't even know how she lifted herself up. That was unreal.
Because here's the key: this step where he's basically pinning one foot, holding her other foot, and bringing her up gracefully like that. That's not Danny lifting her. That's Danny guiding her, and her basically she's doing 90% of that work, right? Because otherwise it looks really janky. She's falling over. Like, the core strength and the thigh strength to keep it unbelievable.
But I loved this for him. I wonder if this will give him more confidence going into the next week. I don't know what they're performing next week. Mm-hmm. But Danny did score 9s across the board.
Terrible judging.
He had, along with Joey, highest scores of the night.
Interesting. I mean, one counter to your...
He also looked fantastic.
He does look fantastic, yeah. So one counter to your point about having to learn a new routine every week. If anybody could learn a new routine in 1 week, I would expect it to be Danny Amendola. Mm-hmm. He was, again, a wide receiver on Bill Belichick's offense for the New England Patriots during the era of the dynasty, right? Mm-hmm. And here's the important thing to know about that is that the New England Patriots you have 1 week to prepare for your next opponent, and they were a game plan team. They were considered one of the most intellectual offenses, in the history of the league during that run. And they would literally install an entirely new offense. It's like every single week you'd basically say, forget everything we did in the past. We're looking at our opponent, and we are going to put completely new plays, completely new schemes all in place in 3 days. And we're going to practice it for 2 days, and then we're going to have a day of rest, and then we're going to go perform. And that was what they did every single game for multiple seasons he was on the team. Mm-hmm. And so if anybody could get a routine down in 1 week, mm-hmm. I would expect it to be Danny Amendola, mm-hmm. Just given what he went through as a wide receiver for the Patriots.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I'm so critical of him, because it just feels like, he's so athletic, mm-hmm. and he clearly is highly intelligent, and he's done this like pressure cooker memorization and practice in crunch time, and he has executed at the highest levels in one of the hardest sports out there. And that's why I'm so critical of him, because I think he could do so much better than he's doing.
Well, he did great this week.
Challenge.
Let's go to Jen.
All right.
Jen performed a foxtrot to The Archer, which is a Taylor Swift song. I don't know if you know this, but Jen is a huge Swiftie.
Of course she is.
And
so basic.
One thing that she did throughout her season is every week on her Instagram, she would share which Taylor Swift song kind of characterized the episode. And that was like kind of like her Easter egg for what would happen on each episode. And so she actually dedicated her performance to Taylor Swift, which I felt like was a little bit lame.
Yeah, super lame.
But Jen
herself is kind of lame. Yeah.
Don't hate on us. We're not true haters.
Listen, I liked Jen a lot during Joey's season. Then she became the Bachelorette, and it was all downhill. And then the stuff that transpired post, the season concluding has just made her look worse and worse and worse. I did see her introduction teaser video for Dancing with the Stars, and it was more of the same victim mentality nonsense. Yeah, she is who she is. But with respect to her dance,
I can start us.
Okay, go ahead.
Like just so I just see where you're going. I'm gonna cut you off at the pass. This was rough. This was a rough one.
Boring.
It was
uninspired.
It just felt like she was like fumbling along. She didn't look smooth. Foxtrot is so light and airy, and it just felt so heavy and bogged down and like a little sloppy.
Felt like Sasha was just like, that's his name, Sasha. Felt like Sasha was just dragging her through it. It felt like she
seemed like she was so in her head.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what was going on.
Not a lot of, it didn't feel fluid, didn't feel graceful. But even just the routine itself was, the routine didn't connect to the music. It didn't connect to really the dance itself. Like it just, it just didn't match anything.
Right. Well, when you compare it to Joey's the music and choreography, Danny's music and choreography. We also watched Derek and Haley Huff's performance, which was amazing. And
they're both professionals, right? Yeah, that was. Those are true professionals.
Yeah. And like the pairing of that choreography, like with that music, it's like that is what we're looking for. We as viewers are looking for on this dedication night, and I think maybe it's partially the little kind of like parasocial connection to Taylor Swift that made this just feel so disconnected.
Yeah, I mean, we already know I don't like Foxtrot as a dance. I wrote down things like she looked the least in control that she's looked at any point in time. I've been saying like her first week was really rough. Then she had a couple of good weeks. Last week, she really looked strong. Yeah. And then this week, it was back to week one. It was just, it was rough. It wasn't pretty. The dance itself was boring. The routine was boring. The one highlight I would say is the final move where it kind of did the spin and then slid her out and she slid into kind of standing up. Yeah. I did love that. It was well executed, but that wasn't enough to carry.
Alona Mar did the same move. I watched hers too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a miss across the board for me.
And this is where the judges agreed with us. Their feedback was essentially her feet were essentially not closing on her turns. The dance didn't seem smooth, that she lost her frame, and that the main feedback is like to tighten up as the competition progresses. Like it's just a little sloppy. And with ballroom, you have to be really precise. I think the song was a miss in a way. Like terrible. This was Jen's moment to do All Too Well. Like I'm shocked she didn't do All Too Well. Song? Yes. Okay. Because I felt like that would have fit her narrative so well. And like good for her, maybe for not taking that opportunity to talk about essentially like a situationship where she was kind of jerked around a lot and like a breakup that really haunted her. Could have been great for Jen, and it's such a great song. Anyway, despite our feedback and the judges' feedback, Jen scored 8s across the board, so still a pretty good score.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my God, these judges.
Let's
They
go
are
on.
lenient.
Let's go on to the star of the evening.
I mean, look, Joey did a Viennese waltz. Love the Viennese waltz.
Mm-hmm.
There were some rough
This was
moments.
dedicated to Kelsey.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basic, right?
Who else is he going to dedicate it to?
His parents, the Bachelor franchise for, the girl that didn't pick him so that he got to be the Bachelor and meet
Charity.
Kelsey. Yeah, I mean, there are other options in there. But all right, yeah. So Viennese waltz, my favorite of the smooth dances, the most challenging of the smooth dances. We've talked about it in the past. There were some rough moments. Technically speaking, he had some serious problems with his feet. I felt like he was doing a lot of fast, short pattering steps instead of nice, long, smooth steps. That being said, I don't know how, but he did manage to get around. He did manage to tether himself, despite the fact that the steps he was taking did not feel like they were big enough or smooth enough to actually get him into position, but he did manage to get into position. And so it looked pretty competent. He's leaning heavily on the spinning, rotating step that he does in almost every routine, and good for him. That is a very challenging step, and he has mastered it very quickly. And so, yeah, lean on that thing because it's a beautiful step. It's a crowd pleaser. It looks good. It's highly technical, and you're executing it great. Do it in every routine, right? Again, of the 3 songs, this is the song that I'm least sick of, so I appreciated that. And I thought the routine itself was a beautiful routine.
I could have watched it over and over again. It was really, really good. I was really,
and
really
his
impressed.
pro is excellent.
Oh my gosh,
what's her name?
Jenna Johnson.
Okay. She's fantastic as well.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I loved her dress. I loved the way that they were coordinated.
Mm-hmm.
Their choreography was great. She understood the beats of the music and paired the tricks, dips and tricks.
Great musicality to the routine.
It was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Really good.
Yeah, I mean, this is the best routine that I've seen this season.
Yeah.
Not of Joey, of all the
agree.
routines. And I don't think it's particularly close.
It's very good. I mean, we haven't seen all of the routines this season. So
no, I've seen all the routines of these 3 competitors.
Yeah, no, of course. This was far and away Joey's best performance. And Joey is the strongest dancer of the 3 of them.
Yeah.
He got 9s across the board.
I think that's fair. Again, if we're judging him on a bronze 1-2 category, I think that's very fair.
The biggest piece of feedback was a slight glitch during the small steps.
I'm not really sure what
they noticed when when the steps are meant to be the shorter steps that those aren't executed as well.
Gotcha. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely interested to see where he goes, but he could win this thing.
I've never watched a show, so I don't know what the rest of the competition, what the standard level is here. But for somebody who's never danced before, and I presume that most people on this have never danced before, I would have a hard time thinking that many people are better than him. He's pretty fantastic right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I guess my question would be: are they judging on a curve? Is it if somebody is 80 years old, they're obviously cannot compete with Joey, the tennis pro, who's 28 or 30 or however old he is, right? So how are they accounting for that?
No, yeah, I don't really understand the judging and how some people what 8s across the board look like for one dance couple versus another. They seem starkly different. So I don't actually know.
Well, we know that, and this is sort of the dirty little secret of dance competitions is that the judging is pretty much all rigged. There's a lot of funniness to who wins and why they win, and it's not always as clear cut as you would think it would be, which is frustrating. We've experienced that many times. We've been the beneficiaries at times where we've won competitions. We're I don't know if we really won that. And then we've lost competitions where it was there's no way. We were clearly miles ahead of everybody else out there. And so it's just it's a weird, dance judging is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
time to get out of here?
Time to get out of here. All 3 of your dancers did make it through to next week. So
they can get eliminated.
Yes, they can get eliminated.
Okay.
So we will, I suppose, talk a little bit more about them next week, along with moving on to hometowns. Joan's season of Golden Bachelorette.
And those came fast, right?
They did come fast. Episode 6
seems so fast.
Yeah, we're down to the wire.
Mm.
So yeah, we will be back next week with more. If you want to check in with us between now and then, feel free to give us a follow on Instagram at Reactivity TV. You can also follow me at Amy Albero LCSW. Send us your emails with any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions for what we might watch in between this season and Grant season of The Bachelor. We'd love to hear from you. You can email us at reactivitytv@revivecfw.com. We will see you all next week. Bye.
See ya.